The reality TV star president did all he could to cancel this particular episode. But today, reality is exactly what caught up with Donald Trump as he made the long, ignominious journey through the city that made him to hear the opening arguments in the criminal case against him. Now, defendant Trump will be judged by a jury of his Manhattan peers in the first criminal case against a former president in American history. But in true Trump style, he used the moment to attempt to steal the limelight for political gain, not shy away from it.
This is done as election interference. Everybody knows it. I'm here instead of being able to be in Pennsylvania and Georgia and lots of other places campaigning. What's going on right here should never be happening. It's a very, very sad day in America, I can tell you that.
A sad day in his eyes, but a just one for those who say holding Trump to account is long overdue. Ironically, this case centres on Trump's alleged actions to interfere in the 2016 election, just as he's campaigning to win the next one in November.
In the tale of the porn star, the president, and the payout.
At the heart of the story is an alleged sexual encounter nearly 20 years ago with Stormy Daniels, a former adult film star who claims she had a brief affair with Donald Trump.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No, but I didn't say no. I'm not a victim. I'm not.
It was entirely consensual.
Oh, yes.
She says she was paid hush money to keep quiet when she threatened to go public with her story just ahead of the 2016 election. The money was paid by Michael Cohen, Trump's then lawyer, who later admitted to lying about the payments and served time in jail for that and other offences. He'll be the prosecution's star witness in the trial, and if the past is anything to go by, he'll be only too happy to tell the jury who he claims made him do it.
First of all, nothing at the Trump Organization was ever done unless it was run through Mr. Trump. He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters.
I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer.
The problem for Donald Trump is that he paid Cohen back in a series of checks that the prosecution alleges were wrongly classified as legal expenses. And it's those payments that are critical to the criminal charges against Trump now. Hush money payments to conceal an affair may sound unsavoury, but they're not illegal in the United States. To win a conviction and possible sentence in this case, prosecutors have to prove that Donald Trump paid the money to keep the news of the affair from becoming public and hurting his chances in the upcoming 2016 election. What prosecutors today in court described as a cover-up, an illegal conspiracy, they said, to undermine the integrity of a presidential election. Donald Trump has always denied the affair with Stormy Daniels and claims the hush money was only paid to her to protect his family. In their opening statement today, his lawyers claim the former president was cloaked in innocence and that Stormy Daniels had simply used her story to make money in the run-up to the 2016 election. Even if he's convicted, lawyers say it's unlikely Trump will face jail time, and he could even get a boost in his election campaign.
This is actually a pretty good thing for Donald Trump, if you look at it from his point of view. He comes before the United States of American people, gives a presser every day. He says, this is a witch hunt. They're unfair. They're trying to interfere with my ability to be your president. And he has those themes every single day that he says them on news media, and it's broadcast. So, does it hurt him? Maybe, but does it help him? I think it's almost a car ride to the White House.
That's Trump's hope for sure.
I think it went very well.
But 6 weeks of this case, not to mention 3 other criminal trials in the wings, could yet derail the dramatic season finale that he's been hoping for. Well, towards the end of the hearing, the prosecution introduced their first witness, a man named David Pecker, who was the owner of the tabloid newspaper, the National Enquirer, and who testified that he paid for stories that painted Trump in a negative light to kill them, what Pecker referred to as check book journalism, and that prosecutors will try to portray as part of a scheme, a conspiracy theory to help Donald Trump win the election in 2016. We'll hear more from Pekka tomorrow. Trump's lawyers, of course, are claiming that there was nothing criminal at all in Trump's conduct. I have a spoiler alert, his lawyer told the jurors. There's nothing wrong, he said, with trying to influence an election. It's called democracy. The trial is expected to last for about 6 weeks. Even if Trump is convicted, it will not stop him, of course, from running for president. There is no law against that, but it will force voters for the very first time to decide if they are prepared to put a criminal defendant, a criminal felon, into the White House.
Thanks, Siobhan. Well, joining us now is Neil Katyal, a law professor who was the acting Solicitor General during the Obama administration. Thanks for joining us. Help me with this, if you will, because you look at this cast of characters and they're people who either paid hush money, took hush money, paid people for stories, were proven liars. I mean, how would you establish any credibility in your witnesses if you were prosecuting this?
Yeah, I think that the prosecution has a really simple story, and it doesn't just depend on the credibility of witnesses. It depends on tangible evidence, including the checks. It's very hard for Trump to explain what in the world was going on with these checks. It was to the point where Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, took out a home equity loan on his own house, on Michael Cohen's house, in order to pay off Stormy Daniels. Now, I know thousands of lawyers. I've never heard of anything like that. No lawyer does that kind of thing. So the idea that this is like Michael Cohen acting on his own or something like that is really difficult. And I think it's the tangible evidence that makes it really hard. Trump could try and tell that story. He could try and get on the stand and say, I didn't do this. It's all Michael Cohen's idea. There are two problems with that. One is, it's just very hard to just tell that story. Why in the world is your lawyer taking out a home equity loan and all of that? But the second is the judge today, before the trial started, in what's known as a Sandoval decision, said if he takes the stand, the prosecutors can ask him about Eugene Carroll and the verdict against him. They can ask him about the gag order and all the violations and what the judge in that case said about how Trump is not credible. They can ask about the New York Attorney General's fraud investigation, which found that he had inflated his assets. Yeah. All of that is
not going to happen. I mean, what we know from the defense opening statement is that, that their defense is he didn't know, that this was all Michael Cohen. And, he'd asked his attorney to sort of handle a problem, a perfectly legitimate problem of sort of making somebody go away with false claims. How he did it was up to the lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm a pretty good lawyer. I can't imagine being able to sell that story to a jury, at least a jury based on planet Earth. But you're absolutely right. That's one defense Trump's lawyer trotted out in the opening statement today. The other is the one that your correspondent just mentioned, which is, hey, I have a spoiler alert. There's nothing wrong with trying to influence an election. It's called democracy. And again, I think Trump's going to have a difficult time with that because the question under the law is how you influence an election. If I bribe people, if I give them $1 million to vote for me, that's influencing an election. But it's illegal every day of the week, and nobody would call it democracy. Similarly here, if you're influencing the election in a way by taking secret money and a secret catch and kill scheme with a publication, that is not, at least any American election that I've heard of that, comports with the law.
And just briefly, how long do you think this is going to go on?
I think we're talking about 4 to 6 weeks of a trial, in part because of all that documentary evidence that we were talking about earlier.
And then appeals, they can go on for what?
Correct. So the appeals will go on for at least a year or two, possibly even 3. So this is a long, long process. We're still only at the start of it, but today was a very significant day in moving the ball forward on the resolution of Donald Trump's crimes here.